Good afternoon. The Class 800 family of trains, one of the most unpopular vehicles to enter service over the course of the past decade or so. And, well, is that justified? They've replaced some very iconic trains, the HSTs, and they were extremely popular with many people. But is that nostalgia holding back the Class 800? Are people just fearful about losing the old? Or are the 800s genuinely appalling trains? So, today I decided to find out, lose all the bias I could, and look at the trains from the perspective of an ordinary passenger, which is, at the end of the day, who they'll be serving. So, are the Class 800s good? Or should they be retired, scrapped, and replaced with the HSTs again? Of course not, that would be a waste. But, are they better? And this is what passengers will first see when they meet their train. To be honest, it's very smart, it looks modern, clean, and far better than the, I hate to admit it, quite aged and wind-battered HSTs. That said, I don't really like the way GWR's green livery looks on these trains. I think it's a bit dull, and LNER's brighter colours suit them far better. Though it has to be admitted that under the fantastic station roof at Paddington, GWR's 800s do look very impressive. Upon boarding the train, passengers are first greeted with the fantastic vestibule. It's very light and airy, with the big windows helping and the wood effect. Once passengers leave the vestibule area and enter the main cabin, they are greeted with an equally pleasant and bright interior. That said, it's not very conducive to relaxing journeys over long distances, but it's good for work. Travellers looking to find their reserved seats, or available ones if they don't have a reservation, can look at the traffic light indicators displayed above tables. These are clear and easy to read, but most of the time they don't work. For a quick bit of context, here is a photo, admittedly poor and unexpansive, of the HST interior. You can see how cramped and dingy the cabin feels with the high back seats and weak lighting. You can also just about see the vestibule, which is much worse than the IET. So far, I think the Class 800 wins. For our departure today, I'm going to sit in this bay of two. And with perfect timekeeping, we're off. As you can see, it's quite a speedy acceleration, even under diesel mode. In electric, it's far better. Ride quality is overall pretty good. You can still hear a lot of bumping as we go over points. The airline-style seats have a sizable fold-down table. It's pretty sturdy, but it has this embarrassingly stiff laptop holder. To be honest, I've never used a laptop in one of these seats, so I don't know how useful it'll be. Legroom in the airline-style seats is also excellent. It's one of the best I've found, and it makes travelling in them actually quite pleasant. You don't feel like you're trapped up in a coffin or someplace. All this is far better than the HST. The legroom in the airline seats on them was appalling, and the high-back nature meant you just felt very oppressed and claustrophobic. Considering that these trains will be operating journeys of up to 5.5 hours, you'd think the seats would be much more comfortable, and they are certainly not. This is perhaps the one situation where they fall behind the HST. They're just so hard and stiff, and extremely uncomfortable for journeys of any longer than 10 minutes. I wonder how many passengers have been turned off from travelling by train again based on these seats. They're so bad that in some European countries they're used as tram seats, not intercity trains. What were they thinking? Admittedly, fire safety regulations prevent seats from being too comfortable in modern day trains. However, it doesn't mean that they have to be this bad. Greater Anglia's new seats, for example, are far more ergonomic, despite their lack of padding. Let's go for a little bit of a wander. Back in the vestibule, we can see the fantastic doors again. They're very clean and nice, but there is a large gap between the door and the floor. It's easy to drop things down here. Trust me, I know. A curious feature of these trains is that the driving coaches are unpowered, which means that there's quite a step down when moving between them. As a result, mind your head notice is provided above the gangway. Coach A in standard class is also a quiet coach if you're interested. Like in most other modern trains, the toilets in the Class 800s are spacious, stylish and thoughtfully designed. In the driving cars you'll find these large disabled access toilets. These are conveniently located near the wheelchair spaces in these respective end coaches. Unfortunately, it seems this toilet had been covered with toilet paper, but I don't know why someone chose to do that, it just makes the whole thing look horrible. And now on to first class. Well, there's little more to be said than it's a massive step down from the HST. The interior ambience is much worse, the seats are too firm, and everything doesn't really feel that respective to GWR. Fortunately, other operators like LNER and in particular Transpennine Express have a far better interior decor. However, it doesn't make up for GWR's. There is little more to be said about the GWR first class interior on the IET, other than it's horrible. Now of course, I have to remind myself every now and again that GWR isn't the only operator in the country. In fact, several other companies operate the Class 800 or a derivative train. These are, in no particular order, London North Eastern Railway, Transpennine Express, Hull Trains, Lumo, Avanti West Coast and East Midlands Railway. As of yet, Avanti and EMR haven't currently received their trains, but I'll be interested to see how they turn out when they are delivered. LNER, TPE, Hull Trains and Lumo, though, do present a very different experience, well, mostly for the passenger when travelling on these trains. Well, that being said, the physical product is more or less identical across all operators. The vestibules are the same, wood panelling is the same, everything but the seats and interior decor is more or less the same. Let's start with LNER. Standard class is in a pleasing red, which fits LNER's aesthetic greatly, far better than GWR. To be honest, it looks okay. Not amazing, but okay. First class does feel much more premium though. The darker red is far more pleasing to the eye, and generally, it's a nice interior. But Transpennine Express is where things really start to get good. The interiors just feel so lovingly designed, the carpet is fantastic, colour scheme is brilliant, and overall it just all feels much more pleasing to the eye than any of the other operators. It fits the aesthetic of TPE perfectly, and just looks fantastic overall. Unfortunately, I don't have any photos of first class, but that's also pretty nice as well. Generally, these are probably the best IETs out there. As for Hull Trains, well, I don't know, I have never been on a Hull Trains Class 802. The interiors look okay. Not the best, but not the worst either. It sort of looks like what First Great Western would have done if they were still in control of the Great Western franchise by the time the Class 800s took over. I really do like the Hull Trains livery though. And as for Lumo, well, I'm not a big fan of the way their interiors look, but the seats are far superior to anything else seen on Class 800 breeds. It's kind of ironic considering they're supposed to be a budget operator. And Avanti West Coast. They haven't technically received their Class 805s yet, but they plan to not have tilting capabilities, which means that they'll be slower than the trains that they've replaced. Oh, and also there'll be fewer of them. I really don't know why they thought this was a good idea, but I cannot see many ways in which the Class 805s will be better than the Voyagers. The only possible way I can see is that they'll be able to use the overhead wires when travelling under them, which is brilliant. It'll stop the horrible waste of diesel that's currently ongoing. However, for passengers on places like North Wales, I cannot see how their journeys will be improving. They'll just be slower and made of shorter trains. The East Midlands Railway trains, though, are really good. The Class 810s are certainly the most unique of all the Class 800s out there. They're these weird pinched nose things. Also, that purple looks excellent on them. The interiors are their best strength, though. They use actually good seats for once. Sorry, Lumo. And
The interior ambience is brilliant. Overall, I'm really looking forward to these when they enter service. So, now we've looked at the Class 800 properly, what is my verdict on them? Well, generally, I think that they're pretty good trains. They're better than the HST in most aspects, and whilst there are some areas that are really let down, I still think that overall they are better. I think the modernity and stylishness of them is crucial, as it's important that people who are maybe travelling on the trains for their first time see a railway that's fit for the 21st century, and not some backwards thing, even if the seats are comfortable. And you might, well, probably, disagree with me there. But that's okay. Please let me know what you think of these trains in the comments, and, as this is my first video, tell me what you thought of it, and any ways I could improve. Thank you very much, and I'll see you soon. Goodbye.